Hey guys, welcome back to Connor Reads. Today we're going through the fourth installment of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time fantasy epic. And it has been epic. It's been so much fun reading this book. I feel like this is the book where the stories go from individual quests and it turns into like epic high fantasy on a global scale. So the way I'm going to do this video is I'm going to throw out my spoiler alert right now. The entire video is going to have hella spoilers. So if you haven't read this book or the ones before it, pause the video, go read them, and then come back. You've been warned. So the way we're going to do this video is there's going to be no summary. I'm going to hop straight into things I loved and some things I didn't love about this book. And then I'm just going to ramble about individual arcs, my predictions from before and whether I got any of them right. And then I'm just going to go into what I liked about the characters' arcs this time round, my theories, predictions, general nonsense and waffle. And then I'm going to go into my predictions moving forwards for the next book and for the series as well. So without any further ado, let's hop into it. When it comes to things that I love, there were so many about this book, and there's so much content. It's 1,000 pages, or this version of the book has over 1,000 pages, and there was so much to love from it that I really decided there was going to be one thing that I loved from this book instead of talking for 45 minutes, and it was just certain scenes. I think this book had incredible scenes in it, and some of the scenes were like a whole chapter long, and some of them really were just small bits of the book, and there were 4 or 5 that really jumped out to me. So I'm just going to go through a couple of my favorite scenes from this book because I thought they were magical. My first scene that was amazing, and I talked about this in, I believe, the previous video as well, was the scenes in Ruidin. I'd never been more excited to read a chapter of a book than that chapter. And both of the stories, Matt's story and Rand's story, but mainly learning a bit about the background of the Aiel, was amazing. It really opened up the book, it opened up the world, and you learn so much. And it also opened up so many possibilities and doorways as well. It really blew the world wide open, and it was perfectly written. And I said in the last book, I read it really late at night. I think it was 1 or 2 in the morning because the story had gripped me, and I didn't feel like I'd ingested enough of the information. So I decided to reread it, and that was probably the best decision that I'd made because I felt like I understood it so much better. So that was the first scene slash couple of chapters that I absolutely loved. The second scene that really struck home with me was the scene where Perrin returns to Two Rivers and he's actually told that the entirety of his family had been murdered. And the reason it struck home for me is I thought it was a really realistic scene, because essentially what he does is he kind of ignores the information and then goes on planning about what they're going to do, how they're going to defend the town, and what their game plan is moving forwards. And that seems really weird thing for someone to do, but the reason it struck home is because when I moved to America, my granddad died, and my dad called me and I was at work, and it was unexpected that my granddad died, and my dad told me, and I'd kind of like, obviously you take in the information, but then I just carried on at work, and I just did a day's full of work without really thinking about it. And I think it's like the shock, and you don't really expect those types of tragedies to happen. So it does take a long time for it to sink in. And the way that scene describes it, like someone else has to tell him, hey, it's okay to cry, it's okay to process this. Like it sucks and it's terrible, and you need to think about it and get it out of your system. And I think that's really true. And maybe Robert Jordan probably had a similar experience happen, and I don't see how you could write that scene without that experience happening. And thought it was really realistic, and it really struck home. So amazing scene. Another dynamic slash scene that I loved was in Tanchico. So in Tanchico we have, I think it was Thom Merrilin, we have the Sniffer, Julian, and also Dolmon, I believe his name was, the pirate merchant. And they're obviously trying to figure out where the Black Aja is, and they have this like rivalry, and there's a couple of scenes where they're like coming in like one after the other, just missing each other, explaining, oh, I tracked them to here, I tracked them to there, I heard this rumor, that rumor doesn't make sense, it's cold, and they're all competing to be the first to find the Black Aja. And it just reminded me of some times when I was younger and I went to the theater, and they would have comedy scenes where one person would come in and say something, one would come in the other, or kind of like the Emperor's New Groove, the chef scene where they would come in and one would be like with spinach or not spinach, and I don't know, it just was very comedic, and I really enjoyed that dynamic, so that was really fun as well. And the final couple of scenes that I loved were the battle scenes at the end. Nynaeve and Molkeden, I believe, I should check her pronunciation, and then Rand and Asmodean, and that really fleshed out the magic systems. Like, it gave me a lot more understanding of what it looked like and how they were battling, and it seems like a very physical magic system. And it was just interesting, like those twin scenes, it fleshed everything out. It really showed that, you know, we do have some players on our side of the game, obviously Rand, but also Nynaeve as well. And I think there's significance to the fact that those battles were so similar to each other, and I'll talk about that significance later. So on to some things that I disliked about this book. I mentioned this before in the previous video, but the romances sucked. The only romance I had any hope for was Perrin and Fails, but that became so childish, and essentially it was them just bickering every scene and daring the other one to not believe that they loved them so much. And it just reminded me of like high school romances, and I know they're young people, but it just didn't really add to the story. I didn't enjoy it in any way, shape or form, and it's just a bit jarring. I almost found myself trying to skip over those scenes. I had to like force myself to go back up and read them because they're so boring. There isn't a good romance in this book at all. The only good relationships between men and women, or you know, two people who are attracted to each other, are warders and Aes Sedai, and I don't think there's even like a, you know, a typical romance. It's more like a servant and a master. So yeah, I know Robert Jordan just doesn't do it very well, and I'm not a huge fan of fantasy, you know, love scenes anyway, if I'm honest. There's only a few authors who've done it really, really well. So yeah, the romance sucked. My final dislike is I'm worried and I'm apprehensive to tell you guys because, you know, you should be careful what you wish for, but the plot armor of the main characters, like I know we're not going to see Perrin or Matt or Rand disappear anytime soon, but the plot armor of all the main characters is so strong, and I feel like for me to really be on the edge of my seat, I don't know if that works for reading, edge of my page, leaning forwards whilst reading, I kind of need one of the main characters to die. I need somebody to take an L, because otherwise how can I believe that they're actually in peril when they come through every single trial and tribulation unscathed and we don't lose anybody? And I couldn't tell you who I want to go because I love all the characters so much, but some of the best series I've ever read, you need main characters to die. Like you just do, because it forces characters to develop and change and grow into new roles, but it also just means that you can really believe they're in peril when they are in peril, and I think we're missing that a little bit right now. So onto the characters. First person I want to talk about is Rand. I threw out a bunch of predictions about Rand in the first section, and I was first section of this book, so like Act 1, the video I did, and I was completely wrong on all of them. But the second section, I got a few right. So the second section, I had already read the Ruidin bit. So I predicted that the way that he breaks the ale is he makes them go back to the way of the leaf, and that wasn't true, but he did tell them all about the way of the leaf, and that is what split them up and broke them. So I was like half right there, which is cool. I also said the Tinkers aren't to be trusted, but that, you know, that was kind of obvious. I also said the Tinkers were the Gen Ale previously. So there's a few that I got right there with Rand. I really loved Rand in this book. I think he developed a lot, especially considering last book we didn't see much of him, and he was absolutely mental in the last book as well. He'd lost his marbles a bit. I love how he's managed to shrug off the influence of Moiraine and really shrug off the influence of a ton of other people as well. He seems to have come into his own and really accepted his fate and has decided to attack it, and I got a lot of time for that. That was awesome. One thing that happened a lot in this book was there was a lot of foreshadowing of Min and Rand having some kind of relationship. He says several times in this book that Min's the only one who's not confusing, so we'll see what flourishes there. But I truly think that he's going to end up with Lanfear now. Having read this book, I think Lanfear is going to be the one for him. I think the only one who can really relate to him in that department. So we'll see. Obviously, he's going to break Elayne's heart, but I believe that Lanfear is going to be the one for him. So in my upcoming predictions for Rand, I think this next book is going to take the Aiel, out of the Waste. They're going to head into war in some direction. But I also think a lot of this book is going to be taken up by him trying to be taught by Asmodean. I also think that Asmodean is a cowardly little snake. I don't think that Asmodean will teach him properly, but it sets up a really cool dynamic, because I wanted like a teacher-student dynamic, and we've got that, but we also have undercurrents where Asmodean really doesn't want to be the teacher, and I think maybe he'll teach Rand in a way that could be harmful to him, but he's got to be careful because Lanfear is going to be watching over as well, and also Rand is probably stronger than him. So it's going to be interesting. I think maybe he'll, you know, sneakily try to get Rand to use too much of the power, try to injure himself, or maybe try and convince him to do something that's, you know, too dangerous, or something that will benefit the Dark One. I do think that he will betray him by the end of the next book, and Asmodean will be found out and murdered. Something else that came out right at the end was that he removed the black, like, tendrils surrounding Asmodean. and I think those were the signs that, you know, the Dark One has his hold on somebody. But also Asmodean let loose that that's what stops the madness, because obviously he is male and he was an Aes Sedai, you know, he can channel, so he's gonna go crazy, same as Rand will, without those dark tendrils in him. So what I was thinking was, obviously the male ones need that, but the female Forsaken, maybe they are less tied to the Dark One because they don't need his help in stopping going crazy. So that's interesting. And if we look at that storyline still, I do think that Lanfear will end up switching sides. I think she's going to be good in the end, because it became out that obviously she was one of the people who released the Dark One, and it sounds like it was an accident. And also, I think a lot of people were angry after she released the Dark One, so they wanted to kill her from all sides. So the only safe bet for her was to, you know, claim she was a Forsaken. So I think Lanfear is going to be good. That's my deep down prediction for her. The next person is Matt. Matt had a quiet end to the book. He had a really cool middle section and a cool start section as well. But his end was quiet. However, some things did get revealed. The spear that he was given, his ravens on it, and it was revealed that the Seanchan, the leaders of the Seanchan, who are called the Blood or the Bloodline, that was their sign, I believe, and also Arthur Hawkwing's sign. So I think he's going to head over in that direction, and it was prophesied that he marries into the Court of the Nine Moons, which is over there as well. So I think with his new ability to remember back like past heroes, etc., to have this spear, which might have been Arthur Hawkwing's, and what else? Probably the medallion as well. But also the ability to speak the old language. I think he's going to go over there and end up being like the king of the Seanchan. Maybe he's going to claim to be of the bloodline, and that's how they bring them into the fold to fight against the Dark Ones. So that's my bold prediction for Matt. Moiraine and Lan, you know, they did the same thing again. Not too much character development. I think it's time for Moiraine and Lan to leave Rand alone. I would like to see them head back and deal with the White Tower storyline. I think that would be interesting to see her in a new area and a new perspective as well. When it comes to Egwene, I really like that she was away from Nynaeve for this book. She, by far, more than anyone else, learnt a lot more about the dream world. Well, her and Perrin as well. And I think in this next book, she's going to delve even deeper into that. We saw a lot of the old heroes in the dream world and some bad people in the dream world as well. So I think she might be the one who's able to bring all those heroes together and maybe like organize them to fight the Dark One's forces, but in the dream world. Potentially. The dream world is still very confusing, but you know, we did learn a lot more about it this time round, and quite a few of our main characters can hop in there and get stuff done, so I'm excited to see where it comes from. But yeah, I think she's going to really be vital in this dream world in the next book. I'm also excited for Min's prediction for Egwene and Gawain, and it was either Gawain's going to break her neck or he's going to bow down to her, and the only way I can see Gawain bowing down to her is if she becomes the Amyrlin seat. So I think if they do, once they do manage to dethrone Elayne as the false Amyrlin seat, well, the real one, but it seems false from our point of view. I think that Egwene's going to take that, otherwise the other prophecy will come true. So I don't know how that's going to come about. I'm not sure that's the next book, but it'll be interesting to see. So Perrin, I loved his storyline. His storyline, like I said, reminded me a lot of Roran's storyline in the Inheritance Cycle, if you've ever read those books. Obviously, you know, Perrin would have been the inspiration for that because it came out so much earlier. But yeah, Perrin, he was amazing again. I think the next book will be about him gathering all the people from that area, like Two Rivers and Taran Ferry, etc. And number one, leading them against the White Cloaks. Another scene that I forgot at the beginning that was amazing was when Perrin really put the White Cloaks to justice and just said, you're not here for justice, you're not here to fight the Dark One or anything like that, you're just here for your own White Cloak interests. And he said it a lot more eloquently than that. But it was amazing. He really did such a good job. And Lord Perrin, as he doesn't like to be known, I think he's going to be gathering up those individuals and you know, taking them to wherever the war's at. I think it's too late for them to settle back down. I do think in the next book he's going to be tied up with Slayer. We're going to learn more about Slayer. Lord Look, I have a feeling that that's going to be like his main nemesis moving forwards. I still don't know too much about him, but he seems to have a relationship with Fael beforehand, so I don't know. I'm not sure. It seems a bit fishy to me, but I did call that. I called that he was the Slayer character, which I'm kind of proud of. But yeah, I think that's going to be his main nemesis moving forwards. is this Lord Look, and maybe he joins with the White Cloaks or something along those lines. But I'm excited to see Perrin's storyline move forwards. I would love for him to bump into Elyas again, and I'm scared that the wolf thing is just going to be forgotten. I'm scared that that's going to be just left behind. He's too scared of, being turned into mainly wolf in his head. I want him to find Elyas, and I want him to unlock that ability. Padan Fain, my guy. I don't know why I like him so much. I'm a bit concerned about myself liking him so much. I think Padan Fain is going to Caemlyn, he said. I think he's going to link up over there and cause a bit of mischief with Morghese, etc. And I'm excited for it. Hopefully him and Matt cross paths again. I really feel like he is Matt's nemesis, even though, he's obsessed with Rand, and I just want to know more about him. Padan Fain's such an interesting character because he's a wild card, so I'm so fired up to see where he gets going in Caemlyn, and I'm kind of excited for him to bring out some more powers, or, everyone's so scared of him, like even the bad people. He must be so evil, this Mordeth Padan Fain character, and I just want to know more about him still. I do want to give a special shout out to Loial. What a guy. Everyone needs an ogre friend like that. Like, he's an amazing, wholesome ogre. One thing though was he was explaining something with the Waygates, and he cut off halfway. He was saying something about a Forsaken trying to get rid of the Waygate, and he wasn't able to. So what happened was he cut off halfway through, and he said they were going to get sucked into, and then just left it. So I'm excited to see what that's all about. You've got some ogre secrets, and I think we're going to find out about them moving forwards. Nynaeve and Elayne, they both had awesome storylines down in Tanchico, and they got the job done. I think in the next book, they're going to go to Caemlyn and work on freeing Morghese from the influence of the Forsaken down there. I'm excited for that. I also think Nynaeve is going to be the one who controls the San Angriel, the female one. I think she's the only one strong enough to do it. I think Egwene is going to turncoat and help them defeat the Seanchan. Then we had the triple threat of the men. We had Thom, Doman, and Julian. I think they're all going to go to Caemlyn as well. Thom needs to get that romance with Morghese going again. I can't wait for it. And the final storyline is Min, the Amirlin seat, Logain as well. The Amirlin seat was so useless. She sucked. I hated her. She was all bark, no bite. But we are set up for an awesome redemption arc. So I'm so excited to see that arc in this next book. And I also think that they do need to recruit someone magical to help them out with that. So my overall predictions for next time is that they're all going to link back up in Caemlyn. I think that Matt, though, is going to go to the Seanchan, and Perrin's going to lead all these people moving forwards. I hope you loved the video. I'd love to hear your comments, like and subscribe, and I can't wait to start reading the next one.